Hello everyone, welcome to our show Creative World. I'm your host Shin Matsuba. We'll be introducing some amazing talented people, chatting with them in a one-on-one interview, hearing their stories, picking their brains, looking through the kaleidoscope of Creative World. We'll have a brand new material of Libera interview in December. Excited? We are! Check out our Facebook page for more details. Today's Creative World. Film industry. Today's guest is currently based in LA, but has a very unique international background. He was born and raised in the countryside of Japan and moved to the States at 15, and later attended Brooks Institute of Photography to study film and video production. His career started with directing short comedic pieces for YouTube. You may even recognize him from his video called But We Are Speaking Japanese. He was also a story producer on the Netflix documentary series called Street Food. Please welcome Davie Neptune. Hello, David.
Hi, Shin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. So I have a lot of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, please have a seat.
All right, thank you.
So first of all, you were born in Japan, raised in Japan with American parents, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up as a bilingual kid?
It was a very different experience for sure.
Right.
Growing up in Japan, my family's American. Both my dad and my mom are American, Caucasian, and they came to Japan in college. They had already met. They were at University of Hawaii together. And so they came to Japan together. And my father is a Shakuhachi player.
Right.
The Shakuhachi is the traditional, Japanese bamboo flute. And he went to Japan to study it and ended up basically staying. And so I grew up in the countryside in Chiba Prefecture.
Oh, Chiba.
Okay. Yeah, in Chiba, and another surfing town, actually.
That's right.
And it was definitely an interesting experience being, me. I have a sister who's 5 years older, and her and I were the only American kids in the whole town. So going to public school for elementary school was pretty interesting because, there's no one that looks like me. But I was pretty comfortable, I would say, growing up. But Japan does definitely have a sense of like you need to fit in,
Right.
So I tried really hard to do that. I was like, okay, I don't look Japanese at all, so I'm not going to fit in that way, but I'm going to learn the language, I'm going to learn the writing, I'm going to do all of the schoolwork and everything perfectly. So
Wow.
no one can say anything.
So then when you moved to the States at the age of 15, then were there any struggles or another cultural shocks that you experienced?
Yeah. Yes. So the interesting thing about me moving to the US was I went to elementary school and didn't really like it because of how strict it was and how long the hours were and everything. So I homeschooled for 3 years in Japan, but I liked that even less because I didn't get to see my friends and I couldn't be social. So some friends who were visiting in Japan from Idaho said, hey, we're going to go back to Boise, Idaho. If you want to come and spend some time with us going to American high school, you're welcome to come and spend, a semester with us. So I decided to do that. And the culture shock that I'm getting to is that was all of a sudden I was surrounded by Caucasian people. And that was a very weird experience. I had visited my grandparents in San Diego growing up. Like I had always gone to San Diego and I've seen America, but it was always a foreign country to me. So when I went to Idaho, it still felt very much like a foreign country, even though for the first time in my life, everybody was treating me like I was just completely normal, regular guy, And I was like, that was weird to me because I had always been treated like I was different somehow.
Right.
So all of a sudden, everybody's like, hey, man, what's going on? And I was kind of like, oh, hi. Hi, nice to meet you. Very awkward, shy kid kind of a thing.
Huh. It's interesting. Then after that, you started your career on YouTube and gained many viewers, actually. That's fantastic. But I'm curious, what initially attracted you to the media? Why YouTube specifically and not film or TV?
Yeah, well, the story there sort of began in high school when I was in Boise, Idaho. I started doing photography, black
Hmm.
and white photography,
Okay.
and really loved that. And I thought I was going to be a photographer pretty much from that point on. And in high school, I applied to photography school, Brooks Institute of Photography.
Right.
And last minute, I decided to switch to filmmaking because I started to get into video stuff in high school. I finished high school in Hawaii actually, and so during that time, it was just the natural next step from
I
photography to
see.
video. And I started just like enjoying the complexity of
Hmm.
storytelling. And I thought I wanted to be a narrative film director and
Right.
eventually do movies like Lord of the Rings and The Matrix
Wow. Big
and
stuff.
well, those are just the movies that I liked when I was in high
Hmm.
school that
Hmm.
I thought, oh wow, like it'd be so
That's right.
cool
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do something like this one day. And that's when I met my friend Ken Tanaka, who is the one who makes all these YouTube videos. And him and I really hit it off because he speaks Japanese. He's a Caucasian guy. He's making these YouTube videos, and
Wow.
he already had quite a bit of an audience. Actually, he had quite a few viewers, and he was doing this bit where Ken Tanaka is basically this guy who he was born between two Caucasian parents, but
Hmm.
adopted by Japanese parents at
I
birth.
see.
So when he speaks English, he has a very thick Japanese accent. And so him and I used to do these videos together, and that kind of evolved into these short videos, like skits that we kind of did. And two of them that were especially popular, one was called "But We're Speaking Japanese."
Right.
日本語喋ってるんだけど.
I watched the video. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
And then the other one that we did was called "What Kind of Asian Are You?"
Mm.
And that's the one where there's a woman who is about to go jogging, and this guy stops her. She's Korean American, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm good, thanks. How are you?" And he's like, "Oh, wow, you speak really good English." She's like, "Thanks." That really became one of our big successes, and that's sort of what led me back into the film industry because I was starting to enjoy making films again.
Right.
And so it was just fun to be creative with the video camera again. And I started getting into a lot more different projects. And I worked as an interpreter for Takashi Shimizu, who did the Grudge, the horror film, and just a lot of different jobs. One led to another. And eventually, I decided that I wanted to do something of my own,
Mhm.
which is where I kind of thought to myself, all right, if I'm really going to create something now, this YouTube stuff is great, but the main writer was my writing partner, David Yuri, and it was kind of his baby in a lot of ways. And I wanted to create something that was really my own. And
Right.
that's when I thought, all right, if I'm going to tell one story, and that's really important to me, I want it to be my dad's story.
Right.
That's where I need to start.
Right. And I see that now you've been directing a variety of projects, including, your first feature film called a documentary feature film called Words Can't Go There, which will be released soon, right?
Yes, yeah, it's coming out
It's
soon.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This has been a 6-year project, and it's coming out on iTunes, Google, all the video on demand platforms
Nice.
very soon. And viewers of your show can see it at our website on Facebook. If you search for "Words Can't Go There," you can find information there. If you like our page, we'll update with news about our release date and that sort of thing. We've almost nailed it down. We're very close to finding a date. So
Mhm. And was it difficult for you to tell your own family story?
tell the full story of my dad, I realized I needed to tell my entire family's.
Right.
And that was not an easy thing to do because, like every family, there's always something that you can improve upon and something that, still needs some healing. And so in my family, without giving away too much, that's about what's in the film. A big theme is sort of being an artist and pursuing your ultimate craft, pursuing being the best at something.
Right.
How do you balance that with actually having a family and spending time with them and being emotionally available to them as well? Which is something that I think me and my sister felt pretty connected to my dad, and like we don't have like bad memories of childhood or anything like
That's
that
good.
by any means. But I think it was more between my mom and my dad. And so that is a part of the film, even though I didn't want it to be part of the film. I wanted to tell the story of, look, there's this American guy who came to Japan, and here are the struggles he went through to get to the place where he is now, which
Right.
is he's a well-known person in Japan now as a shakuhachi player and as an artist and as someone who also makes the shakuhachi. And he's able to do things with this instrument that I've never seen anybody else do. And I really respect him and admire him for that, and grew up sort of feeling like my dad was my hero.
Right, right.
And so I wanted to share that story,
Mhm.
which I think in itself is pretty interesting because, you know, the 70s in Japan couldn't have been a very easy time to try and go into a traditional Japanese art form,
Right,
you know, and make it work as something you do for your living,
right,
you know? Like
right,
that's a
right.
pretty amazing thing to try and do.
So as you mentioned earlier, apparently your father is a very well-known shakuhachi flute player, right? So more specifically, how would you say he and his work have influenced you?
I would say kind of his attitude and his work ethic for
Right.
being creative is he's probably the hardest working artist that I know. He spends all day making flutes and practicing. And then when I was a kid, I would go to sleep and to the sound of him playing the shakuhachi. And usually I would wake up to the sound of him playing the shakuhachi. So his dedication and his attitude that he brought to creativity has really influenced the way that I approach work.
I see, I see.
And I would just also say that uh, like his unending pursuit of creativity in the way of like wanting to do things differently,
Mhm.
always trying to look at something new, has definitely given me a perspective that I don't think anybody else has because
Right.
no one else can say that they grew up in the countryside in Japan with an American father who plays the shakuhachi. So I feel like I've been gifted with quite a gift there.
I see, I
Yeah.
see. That's fantastic. I still wonder that how did making your own film, lead you to working on street food?
Chef's Table is made by Boardwalk Pictures, and my friend just so happened to be producing a new series for Boardwalk Pictures called Street Food.
Oh, I see.
And she knew that I was working on my own documentary for quite a while, and so she asked me if I wanted to come on board as a story producer. And that was a huge dream come true because not only am I working for Boardwalk Pictures that I always wanted to work with,
Mhm.
but David Gelb is one of the executive producers,
Wow.
and it's such a great show. I'm really proud that I was able to be a part of it.
Wow, that's fantastic. With everything going on in this world right now, what kind of activities are you currently working on?
I am just finishing up working as a story producer for David Gelb and a group of other amazing filmmakers, company called Supper Club, on a show called Marvel's 616, which is Marvel's first nonfiction
Mhm.
series. And so I'm a story producer on one of the episodes of that.
It's great.
So just finishing that up. Yeah, it's exciting. I feel like it's going to be a great show, and I think people will be really into it. So I'm really curious to see what people think of it.